Alright everyone, it's time for Occult Literature, video number 373, the Sanitary Code of the Pentateuch. Now, there's a link in the description of my edition of this work on Amazon, second and third links to my books, blogs, highly academic work, number one, religious history. It's 46 pages, so this is on the short side. This is, again, a kind of academic material that I thrive on, myself, some people. It's hit or miss. It's more anthropological and religious. This goes through and talks, of course, about effectively Jewish laws related to, well, one part is cleanliness in general, sanitation that is, including the use of animal charcoal, like when you burn the heifer, you take the smoldering ashes, and these are used for purification rites of different sorts. Talks about leprosy. This is a big thing in the Bible, in several of the books actually, especially I think Leviticus, talking about the treatment of lepers, how they determine whether it's leprosy or not. And if you look at the stringency there, the quarantine methods probably spread leprosy more than they prevented it, except in the general population. So if you had psoriasis, you could be in a little bit of trouble because you might end up in a leper community for an extended period, and that could be a problem. They didn't understand, of course, epidemiology so much back in ancient times. It talks about agriculture. One especially funny part is the idea of not planting two crops in one field, so monoculture. We now know this to be a bad thing, although this book, and it is kind of revisionistic, this is written from a vaguely Zionistic perspective in the Christian sense. So it attempts to scientifically and culturally explain the purpose of these various Jewish laws. So the idea of crops, one crop per field, they say, well, it's about crop rotation. It made sense because you could plant the four basic different kinds of crops. So you grow the grain, then you grow the legume, then you grow the fruiting crop, then you grow like the onion or whatever, and you rotate them. And that is true. That's been a long-term practice and helps to prevent soil erosion and other problems. In the modern age, though, we also understand that companion planting in the same field is actually a good idea, and the concept is rooted in the idea of purity. Specifically, it's a subjugate, like a subordinate clause to the idea of the Jewish people needing to maintain purity in various ways because they were chosen, effectively. The food part of it, though, is about half of this work. And that's really, in the Bible, if you read it in the Old Testament, there are a lot of dietary laws. There are a million things you're not supposed to eat. And again, it explains them in terms of certain animals being disgusting. So, for example, the dunghill crane, the pig rolling around in filth, they considered that to be unclean. It also talks about trichinosis and other things, and that's more meaningful. Although normally if you cook the meat, that's no longer a problem. And for some reason, here in the Netherlands, people eat raw bacon for some reason. I don't understand it. But some because they were disgusting. Some because they were considered iconic. For instance, the lion. Well, there's nothing disgusting about the lion per se, but it's the symbol of Judah, and so it's off limits. Or the usefulness. For instance, camels. Now, there's a whole paragraph here talking about how disgusting camels are. Well, the meat's unwholesome and disgusting and smells bad and takes a lot of preparation. But at the same time, the camel is a really great animal for packing purposes, so you weren't supposed to eat them because they were useful. Same with horse meat. And so it attempts to explain the Sanitary Code of the Pentateuch in terms of modern understanding, or then modern, of course, 100 years ago. Very interesting work, actually, on this particular aspect of Jewish law. This is one of the more funny works as well that I've edited, again, because when you look into the slightly hyperbolic explanations, especially of some of the dietary laws, and then you frame them in a modern context. You say, well, now pigs generally don't have trichinosis because of modern farming methods. Haha, sucks to be in antiquity. We know that the hoopoe, just because it's eating worms in piles of poop, doesn't mean that the meat is terrible, as long as the meat is cleansed. Also, the idea of contamination is covered here, especially by blood, number one, or manure, offal of various kinds, or meat, essentially. And also yeast. Yeast is, if you spilled yeast, there was an entire methodology behind cleaning out the entire room before it could be used again, because yeast, specifically leaven, because of the religious rituals regarding eating unleavened bread, of course that'd be a huge problem. If there's leaven in the room, you spilled a little yeast on the counter, you're making your unleavened bread and it gets leavened, that's a big no-no. You've just committed effectively heresy and could face some severe repercussions. There's a reason why certain super Orthodox Jews have 2 kitchens. Just to be clear, there's a reason for this. Anyway, I highly recommend it. If you're interested in anything related to religious history, especially Judaism, this would be definitely on the top of the list of works that I'd recommend. Again, link in the description of my edition of this work on Amazon, second and third links to my books, blogs. Tomorrow, another book that relates partially to Judaism coming as well. That's about all. Peace out.